For sure, and that is always stems from like I was saying earlier, it breaks it down like you're going out on stage, people are going to laugh at me, I'm going to lose my job because of it, and then all of a sudden I'm going to live in a box, and then I'm going to get the tetanus and die. It always has that. Like,
I've never gone down that
way.
Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Pointman podcast. My name is Zach. I'm one of the pastors here at That Church. I'm joined today by Luke.
What's up?
Who is one of the leaders here in Pointman. And this podcast is designed to help men connect with their Bible and to grow in their faith on a weekly basis. We try to make it weekly. Sometimes we get a little behind. But that's what we're here for. That's what we're doing. Before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe here on YouTube. If you're on a podcast platform, make sure that you rate it, leave a comment. It helps to spread the podcast around to other men. Share it if you find it on Facebook or something. Give us a share, a like there too. It helps to spread the message of the podcast, but also to help guys understand what's going on in Pointman and get some information about that.
See it on
well.
MySpace. Let us know how 2007 was.
Yeah.
Cool.
So MySpace was actually around until like 2015 or something.
So what's up, 2015? How you doing?
Justin Timberlake bought it. I was listening to like somebody break it down the other day. I listened to a weird podcast about information. But today we are talking courage. If this is your first time listening to it, the last couple of episodes, we are doing a monthly breakfast for men the third Tuesday of every month, all year long. And we're talking about the different topics that men need to deal with to become better as men and to build on their faith, looking at what the Bible has to say about masculinity. And we're transposing it into a 12-month study once a month. We have guest speakers and all kinds of things diving into this topic. This month's actually going to be really cool. We have a former professional bull rider joining us to discuss courage. And when I say professional bull rider, I don't mean he was at your local rodeo and made $500.
This guy's traveling.
I mean on the PBR world stage at the World Finals. Super cool dude. He'll be joining us on the third Tuesday of September to discuss courage. But today we are going to look at the 4 R's of how to build courage in our faith.
That's good. Really good. I think it is a topic that men need to have. Men need to know about courage because it is something that is in us that we need to bring out every single day. Because if you don't have that courage to do life, then what's the point?
Yeah. Actually, I said 4 R's of building courage in your faith. It's 4 R's building courage by your faith.
By your faith. Nice. Good.
So it's courage in life through the Bible and what the Bible has to say about how we can build courage in life through God's word. First thing up is reliance. Reliance. Rely on God. Philippians 4:6, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God.
That's good. Don't be anxious about anything. Easy to say.
Yes.
Extremely tough to live out and to do it every day of our life. But Philippians says it, and that's coming from God through Paul. He's writing and he's saying, don't be anxious about anything. So he's kind of giving you a command, don't be anxious about anything. So when you are anxious about something, you're actually doing what God tells you not to do, kind of breaking one of his things. And there's a million times in the Bible where he said, don't be afraid.
Yes.
And there's a ton of times in my life, even right now, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about things that are coming up in the future. I'm actually anxious about those things, and I need to go to God with prayer, with thanksgiving, because that's what it says to do in the Bible. And right now I'm nervous, and I'm trying to give those over to God with prayer. Like this morning on my drive up, I was praying about these things, giving over to God, because like I can't handle these things. You're going to handle it. You're going to be with me in these situations. So might as well just give it up to God.
Yeah, and for men, it's tough to rely on anybody else.
Yep.
You are the provider in your household, and so whenever you think about relying on someone else to provide in your life, that's a bit of a conundrum in the male brain. We want to be able to financially provide, physically provide, securely provide. We want to be able to do all those things for our loved ones, but someone has to provide for us as well. And when we're going through things that anxious is anxiety over a situation. Fear creates anxiety as well. Whenever you watch a scary movie, you're anxious about the next scene because it's supposed to incite fear in the situation that you're viewing. Anxiety in our own lives is we're fearful of the outcome, so we're anxious about the situation.
Yeah, so I've heard that fear can be boiled down to, like, if you boil it all the way down, it usually is the fear of death, usually. So if any situation where you're fearful, you're like, I'm scared to do this, if you follow it back down to its root, it's usually death and or dying or a loved one dying.
Or someone dying,
yeah, exactly. So, like, if you're watching a scary movie, you're thinking, like, maybe if situation could happen to me, how would I react in the situation? I don't want to get stabbed by this axe murderer or whatever. So
most of them are so silly, it's like that can't be real, but it still incites fear in you because the 1 ounce of reality built into it. Yeah, that's good. I didn't think about it that way. I picked up mountain biking recently. And over the last couple of months, and nothing has ever scared me more as a physical challenge than mountain biking does, because it's a tree is there all the time. Like, you're going down a hill, and if you make one mistake, you hit a rock wrong, you're into the tree, or you're off the side of the hill, and you're just toast. And so it's been really cool for me, because as I'm learning how to do this thing, and I'm getting better, I'm getting faster going up and down hills. I'm getting to where I can get out of my head a little bit and focus on the broader task of the cycling event that I'm doing. But when you start giving up some of those things that cause you anxiety, it's tough. I remember the first time I went riding, like I went with our buddy James, who works on the podcast some, and we go to the top of the hill, and it's all control. So I'm controlling up the hill. There's nothing that I have to give up on, really. It's just my control. How fit am I to get to the top of this hill? When we get to the top, I had realized going up, I was like, oh, this is different. So I told James, like, dude, just go. Like, I rode my brakes. When I say I could hear them squeaking by the time I got to the bottom, I guarantee if I'd have touched them, it would have burned my hand. Like, I was just on it the whole time because I couldn't let go of the control and let the skill set that I'd been given take over to be able to navigate the situation. As I've developed that, now it's not so much that I'm on the brake the whole time. It's not so much that I'm holding back to do this. It's really a fun thing. It's really cool to let go and to go fast down this hill and to see and to try to jump stuff and do different things. But when I was trying to control it, I was never going to take that next level. When I gave up that control a little bit, when I gave up on that fear a little bit, that, I could fall, it could hurt, but the reward was greater for me to let go of it. When we're in our life and we're dealing with things that we're scared of and we're gripping them, we're holding the brake, we're holding ourselves back from fulfilling what God has for us. If we're scared to lead our family, if we're scared to do that Bible study, we're holding the faith of our family back. We're not able to allow them to grow and to develop. Warren Wiersbe has a quote where he says that God will judge the man for the spirituality of his family. And so if you're holding the grip on that and you're not presenting that gospel to your kids, to your wife, to your family, you're holding back their growth and spirituality, and it's based on your fear. But if you can let go of that, you can continue to grow and to develop and to be able to do some really incredible things for you and for your family going forward.
That's good. I really like your the mountain bike analogy. I do not like riding a bike. It's the tiny seat that I don't do.
You're not sitting on one very long on a mountain bike.
But I don't really have any crazy sports. I did jump out of an airplane one time.
I've never done that.
That was absolutely terrifying. But in the moment, you can't really do anything. You're just holding on tight anyway, and so you're just gripping it. And he was like, "What's the coolest way you want to go out of this airplane?" I'm like, "Let's do it. Let's backflip out of this thing." Absolutely terrifying when you get down to the bottom. But in that moment, you just have to trust God, because I'm not trusting this stranger man that I just met in that moment, or these straps that I've never seen tested or anything.
But even in that example, like you were gripping and there's fear the whole time. You're not enjoying the situation. When people do it time and time again, they get to this point where they are just comfortable with this idea of jumping out of a plane. Now they're enjoying the view. You see guys doing tricks and chasing people down in the air. Like, there's a freedom once you release the anxiety of the situation. There's growth, and there's this awesome next level that you can tap into whenever you're relying on your abilities in that instance, or again, in the context of faith, when you're relying on God to move in your life to bless other people. And so, reliance. Romans 8:28 also is a good one to look at here. It says, "And we know for those who love God, all things work together for the good of those who are called according to his purpose."
Yeah, working together. So in whatever situation in your life is, you're going through a tough situation, you're going through struggle or painful moment, or the dark valley that we're going to talk here about in a little bit. But you know that those things are working together for the good of those who are called according to His purpose for them. And if you can think about every situation in your life in that context, it makes everything smooth out because you're not fearful of it, because you're like, God is allowing this, or God is putting me through this because of He loves me, because I'm His child, and because He wants me to learn something from this.
Yeah, it's like a broken record verse. Like we say it all the time when people are going through hard things, but it's so good because it's so true. You know, even in the things that are scaring you and the things that are causing you pain, like those things are working for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose. Not for all people, for those who love God and are called according to His purpose. So understanding as a believer, as someone who has accepted Jesus as their Lord and Savior, this is a context where the good, the bad, the ugly, the scary, all of those things are working together inside this umbrella of faith for the good of God's purpose in your life and the lives of those around you. Second thing, resistance. Resist the temptation of Satan. James 4:7, submit yourselves therefore to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Fear is not a spiritual, it's not a fruit of the Spirit. Fear is a personal emotion. It's a reaction to an external stimulus. A lot of those, not everything is a demonic presence in your life, but some of those things create a foothold for the enemy to work in your life in a negative direction. And so whenever we can resist the temptation of Satan to be fearful in situations, we submit ourselves to God and resist the devil and resist that foothold that he may have in our life. We're able to push those things to the side. We're able to move forward in God's will and God's power and to do incredible things outside of fear.
Yeah, that's good. I kind of relate this back to the first time that I ever served at church. I had this, like, whatever moment or that I could have chose to not serve. So the situation was, I told the youth pastor, hey, I want to come help on a Wednesday night. He said, okay, show up at 6:30 or whatever at the church, and you just come in, hang out with us. And I drove up to the church, drove there the whole way. I was thinking, like, I'm terrified. I'm scared. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if this is what I want to do. I'm scared, contemplating all my life decisions in that moment. Drove up to the church, sat in the parking lot, and I sat there for like probably 10 minutes, thinking, debating whether I talked to the pastor. He knows I'm coming. I could never show back up to the church again. No one would know. This is when I was active duty, so this church doesn't know me. No one, I'm not related to anyone at this church. No one's going to know. If I drive off and never come back, no one's going to know. So that fear and that temptation to just drive away, and I know that was not from God. God wanted me to get out of the truck, walk in, and start my serving journey. For me, that was a turning point in my life where I think I could have drove off. And I don't know if I would be sitting here today if I would have just driven off and not come back. But I got out of the truck and walked in, and it was weird and it was awkward at first, but that's what God wanted me to do, and to go in there and try to help these youths these youths out as much as I could. But it was the very beginning, and I know that I was tempted by the devil not to do it, and just got to have that courage over fear to get out of the truck.
That's good, and you hit it. That's an example of a foothold that could have been set in your life that could have sent you in a direction that wasn't into God's will. If you had said, no, I'm not going to this church anymore, and you have an issue and you don't return at all, then you've allowed that foothold to take root in your life, and now you're moving in a different direction than what God had designed for you to do inside of His will for you, and that it would have been a negative for the rest of your life. It would have been that foothold that you established for God or for Satan to work against God's will.
Yeah, and like in that moment, I was absolutely panicked. Like, I could say, look back right now, I was like, who cares, just walking to church? But I was absolutely terrified to get out of the truck, not knowing what I was going to get myself into or what was going to happen in the future. And I think not knowing what's going to happen is a big fearful point as well. Yeah,
no, without a doubt. Number 3, relinquish. Relinquish your fear to the Lord. Isaiah 41:10. Fear not, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Relinquish.
Fear not.
Fear not.
That's not in my NLT version. Do not fear, but
that's in that ESV.
It's good. giving it over to the Lord, like we were saying at the beginning, it's the number one thing you can do to help yourself, not to help yourself, but lean into God, because He's going to get you through it. And if you're just holding on to it, and it's not going to work out for you.
Yeah, so. I like do not be dismayed, for I am your God. Do not be fearful. Do not be held back. Do not be anxious to do this thing. I am God. I am your God. I am in your life. I am moving. I am working. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. We talk about it like when it happens a lot with like people who are lonely, and they'll come, they'll be like, I don't have anybody. I'm by myself. And it's like, you're never by yourself as a believer, because God is always in your life, and you accept Him and just accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. Then you now have this companion in life, essentially, that you can commune with, you can speak with, you can learn from His Word, you can grow in that relationship with Him. You're never alone. Now, community is here. Come to Pointman, come to the church, get involved with what's going on, because that's where community is developed, and you're not alone physically anymore, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you're no longer alone once you have a relationship with God. Don't be fearful to be in that way. Relinquish those things over to Him, and He will help. He will uphold, and He will strengthen you.
Yeah, it's not like it's always going to be good. It's always going to be great and amazing, just because you're following God, because sometimes it isn't. But a lot of times it's whenever I've gone through those moments, God's trying to teach me something. So learn from those tough times and those situations you're in.
Yeah, it's not always going to be easy. And that's where courage becomes a tenet. It becomes something that men have to develop. It becomes part of this conversation that we're having, this ongoing conversation, because you have to have courage to live inside of God's will sometimes. Sometimes it is scary. Sometimes you will be asked to do something. I remember the first time I ever was asked to do anything in Pointman. I was asked to be the games announcer. We used to do a game in Pointman at each night.
Bring it back.
No, we're never doing that again. Knock on wood. I don't think it's...
Well, hold on. Let's pause for a second. It's pretty funny, because we've been doing this podcast for a while, and you've come full circle on a lot of things, a lot of the topics that we've started when we first started doing this podcast. So you never know. A lot of things you were like, I don't really like the verse of the day, send it to people, and then all of a sudden, a couple months pass, you're like, maybe it is good.
I still don't like the verse of the day, but I see the value at times in it. I just think that if you're going to post a verse, maybe do a deep dive and understand what it is. So if someone does have a question, you're able to answer it.
Here in a couple months, we'll be doing games at Pointman.
We will not be doing games at Pointman in the semester night. I can tell you we won't. We ain't got time for it. It's literally not possible. We can't fit anything else inside of that hour to help guys connect with their Bible. And I don't know if cup stacking's really helping there. That's what we did. We played, the speed stacking. Yeah. We did that. But I remember, Kendall, who was running Pointman at the time, he's the pastor of our Cabot campus. He comes in and he was like, hey, you're running games. Here's the game we're playing. I got to run check on something in kids. He never came back.
It's delegation is the way we like to call it.
That wasn't delegation. That was trial by fire. He was just like, good luck, and just bounce. And so it actually turned into, I was doing games, to then I was having to help get people to host, to eventually taking over Pointman. But it was just this, I was like, I don't know what to do. All right, guys, you've never met me before, but let's stack cups. But it's it was a moment of anxiety. And it's similar to your truck story, just in the fact that I don't want to do it. Frankly, I didn't want to do it. First time I ever hosted on a Sunday and walked out, it was I've seen it done, but to actually do it is a completely different thing. I actually still get more anxiety hosting than I do speaking. If I have a message that I'm giving, could be a Holy Spirit thing, now that I say that out loud, that I'm confident that I need to do this thing for God and to reach people. But there is definitely more comfort in speaking a long form conversation more than there is a, hey, welcome. That's just, it's different.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. And that is always stems from, like I was saying earlier, it breaks it down. You're going out on stage, people are going to laugh at me. I'm going to lose my job because of it. And then all of a sudden I'm going to live in a box, and then I'm going to get the tetanus and die. It always has that.
I've never gone down that
way. So I don't know why that is, but I don't know. That's the way I think about things anymore. And I'm now I'm just leaning into God's side. I don't care anymore, so I'm just going to let God handle it and not have that fear of whatever it is anymore, and let God handle it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, Oh, gosh. Okay. All right. Let's do
I
this
really
thing.
just have more of a fear of helping people have a good
Not
experience. I don't have a tetanus
Okay.
fear
All
from giving announcements in church. That's an aggressive backslide
Hey,
there.
I feel like that's the way your brain works sometimes. And if you're sitting there thinking to yourself like that is me as well, like that's happened to me 100 times, where I'm fearful of a situation and you like that is an unrealistic. That is never going to happen. If you can point to that and say these things are never going to happen in my life. Oh, okay. Well, then let's do this thing. Let's not be fearful of it, because in the end, I'm not going to get tetanus and die. So let's do it.
Let's look at something real quick in this conversation here. So there is a difference in discerning to not do something and being fearful of the outcome of that thing. So we did a podcast a couple of weeks ago. It was an incredible conversation with a gentleman. There's some clips that'll be going up online. But the podcast as a whole, we didn't post. We did the whole thing. It was edited. It's ready to go. It would be available to post, but we decided, and in conversation, you pointed some things out. We had conversations with Shane, who was on the episode, conversations with the guest, and it just, would it be a bump in subscribers? Probably. Would it be something that a bunch of people viewed? Probably. The story's insane. It's incredible. But there's just things in the conversation that are not necessary to go out. We aren't fearful of the repercussions of the conversation. The conversation was not spiritually inept. It was solid. It was good. There was just things in it that, for whether it be a legal reason or a family reason or a safety reason, we just decided not to post it. We're not scared of the conversation. We're not scared to share it. We're sharing clips of it, so clearly we're okay with it. But in the discernment of what is right for the situation, we decided not to run the episode because of it. Just, it makes no sense to put people in harm's way for a couple of subscribers and a few views. And so we discerned, we weren't scared to not post that episode. That's something that I think you have to work out in your spiritual life. Like when things are coming up, it's like, should we do this thing? Well, I think it's for God. Is he really telling you to do this thing? Is this really an important thing to do? Or is this something that is a prideful thing to do, or something that's the easy thing to do? I think we have to discern the difference sometimes. And some things are not being scared. Some things are just being smart and not doing them. Jumping out of an airplane, if you've never done it before by yourself, that's not really a fear thing. That's really more of a discernment thing. I don't know when to pull this thing, so I'm not going to do it. Yeah. Like, there's practical thinking that has to go into play when we're talking about situations that we could be fearful of as well.
That's good.
Final thing, final R, revisit. Revisit your time with God daily. Psalm 1:2, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law he meditates day and night. This is in Psalms. Psalms is hearkening back to the original law built into the Torah, but the tenet of this conversation continues to move forward today. Meditate daily in God's word. Grow in your understanding of what God's will is from his word, what his communication to you is from his word. It'll change the framework of fear, because if we understand what God's true will is, then we're not making decisions on our own accord. We're not trying to do things on our own, and we end up in that cycle of what can I do? I'm scared to do this thing. All of the other 10 R's, relinquish, resistance, I almost said Romans because there was a verse there. Reliance. All of those things really harken back to the idea that we're in our word daily, and we're learning, we're understanding, and we're growing daily. Meditate. Meditation is not, I'm going to read my verse of the day and I'm going to go about my day and do my thing. Meditation is to sit and to think through what you've just read. It's to dwell. It's to spend that time in prayer. It's to spend that time quietly thinking through the situation, growing and understanding. Do some more research on what you just read. Like, it's not as simple as John 3:16 is my verse of the day. I'm posting it to Facebook and then I'm going to work. Like, there's more to it than that when we start to think about meditating on the word of God and on his true will and his true purpose. Delight in the law of the Lord. Don't be fearful. One of the biggest questions that comes up is this a sin? Hate that question. If you're having to ask if this thing is a sin, it's probably a sin in your life. Like, if it's something that you're having to say, should I be doing this or should I not be doing this? There's something about it that is keeping you from growing in your relationship with God to the full capacity that you could. You're relying on something else. You're dealing with an addiction, you're dealing with a sin of the flesh, quote unquote. You're dealing with something that's keeping you from fully entering that relationship with God. Get it out of your life. Don't ask if it's a sin. Just remove it and see what happens.
Yeah, for me, whenever I hear the word revisit and thinking about God and think about things that I've been through in my life, there's a ton of times in my life where if I just look back on similar situations where God's gotten me through it or God's helped me through it, it makes this situation that I'm coming through way easier to go into. So right now, I'm in this moment where we're sitting right now, I have this thing coming up where I'm a little bit nervous about it. But I've done this before. God's gotten me through this, basically the exact same thing before. Why am I nervous about this thing? If I just revisit where God has gotten me through that, I can look back at another moment in my life where I've had to, so I had a really good friend of mine call me over the phone. He had a work situation he was absolutely terrified about. I mean, it was a big situation, and someone could be very fearful of this situation, like could be losing his job type of situation where he's had it for forever. And he was calling me, and he was like, man, I'm terrified. I'm nervous. And in the moment, for him, I know he's gone through such similar situations before, but I had to like let him know, like, hey, has God ever gotten you through, has gotten through a moment like this? And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, you think he's going to get you through this? And he's like, well, yeah. And I'm like, just leaning to God in that moment. And I can say that to him because that's easy for him. Not my life. I'm not about to lose my job, so it's easy for me to say. Right. But if I look in the similar situations where I can be fearful in the moment because I'm not looking back at what God's gotten me through before, and if you can do that and know that God's going to be with you, it makes that situation way easier to handle and to not be fearful of it.
Yeah, the Bible says for him who knows the right thing to do and doesn't do it, or if you know the right thing to do and you do not do it, for him it is a sin.
Yeah.
Zach paraphrase edition. But yeah, if you're in a situation and you're fearful of the outcome, the right thing to do is the right thing to do.
Right.
No matter what the outcome looks like, and then whatever the consequence of that outcome is, it's the right thing to do.
That's what it is.
And you have to trust in God and be fearless in your faith, bold in your faith to know that it's the right thing to do and to move forward in that. Yeah. Cool. 4 R's of building courage by building your faith. First is reliance. Spend time, rely on God. The things you're dealing with, things you're anxious about, things you're fearful of, rely on God to work through those things in your life. Resistance. Resist the temptation of Satan. Do not give him a foothold in your life because your fear kept you from doing something for God and in his will. Do not allow Satan to move you from the will of God. Relinquish your fear to the Lord. The things you're scared of, give them to God. Move from relying on yourself. Relinquish those things to God and move forward in his will and his power. Revisit your time with God daily. Revisit. Spend time in God's word. If you think you've read something enough times that you understand it, read it again because there's a new revelation for you in it. Daniel's a good example. We read Daniel all the time in Pointman. It's in Pillars. It's now part of our Bold Breakfast because it's an incredible example of masculinity in the Bible. And it has so much teaching on these topics that we're talking about right now. We read it all the time. I read it every year at least 3 or 4 times when we're teaching stuff. Every single time I read it, there's a new thing that I take from it that is applied into the lives of men. Revisit your time with God daily. This has been the Pointman Podcast, 4 R's of building courage through building your faith. Make sure you like and subscribe before you get out of here, and that way you'll know when we got things coming up. Pointman semester has already started, but there's still more weeks to come. So no matter what night you're seeing this, what day you're seeing this, get yourself to That Church Sherwood, That Church Cabot on Wednesday nights in September. 6:10, the doors open. Come get checked in. We've got some awesome stuff planned, some sick new t-shirts, and a lot of cool stuff going on. So make sure you are at Pointman this September, Wednesday nights, 6:10. We'll kick things off at 6:30. Hope to see you there. We'll see you next time.
Play the music.